Hey there, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Texas Prison Transparency Project. Tonight is special episode number 3, doing a deep dive into the whole parole process, everything that we have to go through, beginning to end, and as well as continuing to be on parole out here in society, right? There's a lot of families that have got a lot of questions. A lot of inmates have been sending a lot of questions through their families, right? So we paid attention. We'll watch the comments as best we may. If y'all want to ask something tonight, and we're going to go down through there and see what we can do to help ease the process and increase our odds of getting our loved ones back home where they belong, right? Living life. All right, tonight, Mr. Brandon Kopic is back with me, Favor Legal Representative. We are officially partnered with them. We highly respect them. They're intelligent, they're professional, and if you've been paying any attention at all, these people obviously know their business inside and out, both lived experience and professional experience, educated experience. All right. So let's start off tonight's show, man, with what's most recent in the news. Everybody's talking about the TBCJ board meeting that just went down, right, on the 19th, on Tuesday. So we were both there, as well as a handful of other great advocates in the state, and we participated in the public comments section. We got up there, we represented our people, and, well, I'll tell you for myself, my takeaway overall from this year's board meeting, and I went to both of them that were open to the public. I don't know how real it is yet. It's yet to be tested, at least by us. But the board members and some of the directors have reached out, not once, not twice, but 2 or 3 or 4 times here and there. And they seem actually willing to collaborate on solutions, on ideas, on concepts. They've urged me personally to submit ideas and suggestions and concepts and programs and whatnot, right? And I'm doing that. I'm in the process of doing this now. But that's the attitude I've consistently gotten as an inmate, ex-inmate that ain't been out of prison a whole long time yet and did a whole lot of time, right? So you would expect that I have every reason in the world to be resentful towards these people, right? And all those reasons exist. But I had to grow beyond that. I couldn't live bitter. So here we are, man, and that's my biggest takeaway. I expect most of y'all know by now that Bobby Lumpkin is now the executive director of TBCJ and will be for the foreseeable future. So that's the reality to work with. Different people feel different ways about it. I'm choosing to be optimistic because I've met the man 3 or 4 times myself, and I can just go off of what I know so far, which is limited. But like I said, we're going to test this also. So we will see what the future holds. Mr. Kopic, and you were there too. What was your take on the board meeting this year, sir?
I also agree as far as your reception, your perception dealing with some of the directors. I had an opportunity to have a one-on-one with 3 of the different directors. Director Hazelwood with chaplaincy, Director Zamora with reentry, yes, and Director Barbie, who I worked yes. for while I was in. And all of them were very receptive, taking notes, and I've already started to receive some feedback. So the fact that we have someone, anyone who's willing to, knowing that both of us have spent, a combined 37 and a half years in prison, and that we're now, not only we contributing to society in a positive manner, but now we're entrepreneurs. We are we're creating jobs for formerly incarcerated people, and so and they recognize that, and even so that the Chairman Nichols recognized you immediately and said, "Hey, let me know whenever you're going into a unit. I want to go with you. I want to see you at work." And so the fact that was the case was super
Right,
cool.
that was pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I was proud of you, but I was definitely impressed that Nichols basically put himself out there. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
About Director Lumpkin. So he takes over in 11 days. Well, we'll say 10. And so he's in this. He was the forerunner of everybody. He was the front runner everybody thought was going to get it.
Yes, I did as
And
well.
and like you, I have not had any negative interactions with him. And so I understand that not everybody's had good interactions with everybody.
Right.
And I get that. And so, but here's the reality of things is that we have to get our mindset that regardless of whether you like him or love him or don't know anything about him, he is our executive director now, and he is who we're going to have to
Yes.
be dealing with. And so if we have the
Yes,
right
sir.
mindset that regardless of what anybody else does, I'm going to continue in the character of who I claim to be. And then I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm gonna communicate the right way. I'm going to act in a professional manner. All of those things. If I don't get that in
Yeah.
return, that's on that other person, not on me. And
You're
so,
still gonna act the
therefore,
same. Right.
absolutely. So here I pray for Director Lumpkin. I pray that he does everything that he says he's going to do,
Correct.
and therefore I'm believing in that. And absolutely, as Lau said, we are praying for him, and that's certainly because God, we need
Yes.
God to bestow wisdom to whomever is in that position. Um, and so, other than that, it was a great meeting. There were some great comments from the public. I heard
Yes.
from people about different issues, and I'm so thankful. Guys, if you have not been to a meeting and you have things that you are upset about or things that you want to see changed, please go to the next meeting that's open to the public. These comments on social media, they are wonderful for you guys to communicate. But whenever you have the opportunity to get in front of the people that make decisions, and they may or may not be seeing your social media post, but they have no choice to acknowledge your being in front of them and bringing this to their attention. And we on several occasions, I'll
Right.
give you an example. One of the judges one of the judges that's the secretary of the board, she specifically, whenever they were
Yes.
talking about money that they were putting into the hobby unit, and she's talking to the facilities director,
Yes.
she said, Director, I've got a question because we've had some ladies that have testified today about the horrible water conditions at the hobby and marlin unit. Is any of this money going towards that? And he addressed that directly.
Yes.
And she wanted follow up on that. And so directly from her
So they were
hearing the
paying
comments,
attention. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. And so I say that so if you have
Yes.
complaints, this is where they're aired. They're not aired to the court of public opinion. They are aired, and everything that is said. And I don't know if you've ever gone back and looked at some of the minutes but all of that stuff is logged into the Texas Registry
Yes.
and is forever there. Everything that we've ever testified to, or so on and so forth. So
Yes.
that's my point.
Part of the public record now. Absolutely. You want to it's easy to complain. It's harder to find solutions because solutions require work,
Yeah,
require action. And there's a lot of reasons some people can do it, some people can't. But for those who can and are willing and able, that's what we choose to do. So,
yeah,
all right, that's an overcap of the board meeting. It was live streamed, so everybody can watch it online. It's been posted several times. It's on TBCJ's YouTube channel, I believe.
yep,
And so that's there. That's there, man. We always encourage more people to get active. It's only open to the public 2 times a year. I'm sure it could be scheduled for if it's important to you. All right.
yeah,
So moving on. The episode 3, man, we're going to dive back into the parole division, which is this big old monolithic beast that covers so much and has so much power over men's lives, over their future, over their actual life. I always felt like personally on the inside, like these voters, like, man, these people they get to play with my life. Like they get to decide my life and they don't even know me, man. They don't know nothing about me. And then you hear all these stories about they're only going to look at your file for like 1 or 2 minutes at the most. And man, it's hard not to have a feeling of defeatism, a feeling of oppression, a feeling of almost hopelessness. Many men feel that way, but it's not actually hopeless. Every time you go up, it's a bare minimum, a 50-50 chance. And what we're all about is increasing those odds in your favor as much as we possibly can. That's how that works pretty much, man. Would you agree with me, Brandon?
Absolutely. I woke up this morning. The very first thing that I got was our my operations, my business partner, the operating partner. He sent me a message that one of my really good friends, one of my best friends, who is actually a client, got a 2-year set off, and I felt like I got punched in the gut. And
Yeah.
this is somebody who I've talked about kind of peripherally, never been in trouble, never had a case, done everything he's supposed to do, has got every possible certificate, and we did so much for him to make parole, and still
Yes.
got denied. And so it is arbitrary, it is not scientific, and it is broken. But we
Yeah.
want to share information with you so that you have the best possible thing. So there's a there comes it's like for his example is, so as it depends on me, so as it depends on me, I'm going to do all that I can do, and then trust and believe that at the end of the day, if I got a no, it wasn't because I failed to do something. It was because of something completely outside of my control. Because the last thing you want to do is come up and go, I should have done this, or I could have done this, or if I
Yes.
had to do it over, I would have done this. And that's not the way you want to be, because it really destroys your psyche, and it
Right.
causes you to
Like
become bitter.
our point, I would say, yeah, yeah. Like our point and purpose here is just like we're describing. That process and the toss up and the uncertainty and the never knowing and the guessing and the stress and the depression and everything else that comes along with it, right? That creates this feeling of helplessness and powerlessness in most people. What we're trying to provide here is something that you can grab a hold of, learn more of, and go through a process that's going to give you what power you can have in these situations. To the extent that you can have power or control of it, you need to have that in order for your peace of mind, your sanity. You need to have that, right? Most people do.
Right.
That's what we're trying to provide here: the answers, the education, the insight, the services for those who don't want to do it themselves or are unable to do it themselves, or whatever the circumstances may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tonight, we had several questions last week and following up to this week. They want to know more about understanding interstate compact. Do you have a good understanding of that aspect of it yourself?
I do, and actually, before we get to interstate compact, there was a question that was put in the deal, and Ashland wants me
Oh,
to address it, and I think Joshua Lindsay's asked this 2 weeks in a row, and he
okay.
says, why do I give the halfway house 33.3% of my check to put into their own version of a savings account instead of getting in my own savings account in a bank? I was told this is a TDCJ policy. Here's what I will say: is my understanding it is not a TDCJ policy, but it is a core civic and a geo policy, and it may be part of their written contractual agreement with those two for-profit entities. Uh, and
Ah,
so, and so,
okay.
meaning that because, okay, so by and large, if you think about who they perceive as typically entering these institutions, there are typically people who may or may not have any familial support or whatever the case may be. They're typically multi-visitors, and this again is we're talking about the perception of the board or the perception of TDCJ or the perception of these for-profit entities.
Yes.
So their ideology is that those people are financially incompetent. Now, are there people who are financially competent that are bound by those? Absolutely. And so what they do is they will take portion of your check and put it in a savings account. Now, the unfortunate thing is the fact that I
You
don't
can't
believe that
access it.
you can't access it till you leave. I don't believe it's bearing any interest. And so if you are financially competent, you could put it in another vehicle. And so, unfortunately, this is a policy internally. If you're needing a place to find in a particular area in order to get you a better place that doesn't require those things, reach out to myself or Shannon and let us see if we can try to find you someplace better. And I'm sorry that
Right.
that's happening, man, brother. I'm going to
If we
continue to
don't
pray
know
for you.
somebody, we probably know somebody who knows somebody. Right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So
All right.
interstate compact. Let me get to the topic. So interstate compact. Let me define that. So all 50 states, with the exception, I believe, of Massachusetts, involve themselves voluntarily and enter into an interstate compact. So which means that we all have this agreement that if I have a parolee who really is from another state, so let's say Tennessee, then they
Yes.
can apply for interstate compact transfer to the state of Tennessee. And then they're transferred. If they're on parole, they transfer to the jurisdiction of the parole board in Tennessee to follow whatever rules were imposed by the Texas board, filtered through whatever the Tennessee board has going on. Likewise, if somebody is a parolee or probationer from another state, and those are two separate things, and I'm going to talk about them.
Yes, sir.
They can request interstate compact to Texas if they're a Texas resident, or if they're moving for a job or whatever. If they don't have any familial support over here, but they do over here, so they can apply. If they're in parole, they go under the jurisdiction of the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole, subject to commensurate policies and procedures, special conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Or if they're a probationer, is that under 42A, I think it's like 0.506. One of my guys and I were talking about it yesterday. It actually allows for a district court in that county of residency to then take authority over that probationer's conditions. Thus, what they'll typically do is modify them to the parallel conditions of Texas. So, for example, if somebody committed a crime in the state of Florida that required certain things, but they came to Texas and it didn't require those, and they're more than likely going to force the Texas version of that, which may or may not be applicable to the original, and vice versa.
Yes. Okay. So it can alter your conditions. If you interstate compact, the conditions that you were issued in Texas, if you're going elsewhere, are subject to at least possibly be altered, upon acceptance by the other state, right?
Absolutely. And like, for example, Texas, a traditionally red state, if you go to a more liberal or blue state, you're more than likely going to see kind of more lax conditions of parole in a blue state than you would.
I would expect so.
Okay.
I would expect.
Moreover, there's another type of interstate compact, and that is you could go prison to prison, state to state. Now, I would say that it is on statute. I haven't personally seen it. I've heard tell of people applying, but I haven't heard. And essentially what it is it's the receiving correctional institutional division would have to say, okay, we have a bed open, we'll take them and receive them, and that's typically going to be about all the different nuances of the situation. And I've yet to see that happen, but I haven't seen it requested a lot. So there's all those.
I've never seen it happen either. Yeah, I've never seen that one.
I had a buddy that was from Guam that didn't have any family in Texas, and he was requesting an interstate compact to Guam, which is a U.S.
territory.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Did it work? Did he get it?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Okay.
And
yeah, that'd be kind of odd. Yeah.
I mean.
All right. So I got another question about interstate compact that has come up a few times. People are debating whether they should apply for interstate compact whenever they become eligible for parole, or whether it's wiser to wait until after, to use a Texas parole address to get out of prison. And then when you go to parole, apply for the interstate compact through parole. Is there pros and cons? How's that look?
This is one of those things where, and I understand that we've had some people who are formally affiliated with TBCJ or to parole that have kind of weighed in here, and we appreciate their comments. I can only speak from my own personal experience, from both while I was incarcerated, having made parole and witnessed around me people who were residents of other states applying for interstate compact and the effect that had upon them. Moreover, it was also the fact that hold one second. I also have seen where people have done it inside and been expedited. I had a guy that I was in the wing with. He made parole, finished his program, went to interstate compact to Louisiana, and he was gone 60 some odd days.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
seen people
That's
try
quick.
to interstate. I've seen people try to interstate compact to other states, Arkansas being one of them, and they were waiting for response almost 9 months to a year after, and remained
See, that's what I've
incarcerated,
seen.
having made parole.
Yeah, that's what I've seen myself. Is that it seemed to me from my personal observances, if you try to interstate compact straight out of prison, it's likely going to delay your release by months or maybe even a year or more, right? So that's something to be weighed in the factor. You know, it may be a lot quicker to use a Texas parole address, assuming you have one, and get out and then go through your parole officer and interstate compact. That would seem to be quicker to me, but I don't know that for sure. So that's all
So
part of the debate.
I have a friend that this has recently happened with, and we were locked up together for 5 years. He's one of my very good friends. I'm friends with his family now. They live in California.
Okay.
He's here in prison in Texas, and so they were trying in the process of interstate compact him to California, and I'm like, look, I'm not giving you advice. I'm merely just saying, like, from one friend to another, don't do that.
Yes.
Because California is one of the. I've got a buddy that's trying to interstate compact from Texas to California while
Right.
on parole, and it took him
Right.
9 months.
Wow.
And he was out. And he was out. So I say that to say that it's very nuanced. You change any part of the equation, the whole equation changes. And
Yes.
and he, did a lot of time,
So
yada yada yada. So
it would
let me
be.
say.
Go ahead.
So I told him, I said, look, we will bust our butts and let us try to find you a Texas address. And we did. We found him a Texas address. And so that's already been approved. It is an approved
Okay.
address. He's like 30 days from PC, from program completion. And now he's going to the East Texas area. And so now what we have is there's a 7-step process when they go through reentry, essentially, is that once their program completion happens, they give them a certificate goes in the system, it gets shipped to Austin, and then the reentry ladies, who are all sweethearts, if anyone knows them, give them a hug and a kiss for me. They're all sweethearts. They go through this 7-step process, and once they get done with that 7-step process, your loved one's going to get a date of release, and it's going to pop up on their TBCJ page, and it'll say expected date of release, that he's getting out on parole, and what unit he's getting out from.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember waiting on that forever. Forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I only waited about 3 weeks afterwards, because I went to forgiven felons and
we ain't gonna go into that one. Yeah, I was supposed to be released like 6 months before I was released. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, another topic, another subject, but yeah. So basically, I think it's safe to say, at the root of it, an interstate compact is essentially either a prisoner swap or a parolee or probationer swap between states, because they're trading one for one, and bedding, housing, all that stuff has to be available on both sides of the equation before it actually happens. So that's where your timelines and timetables come. There's no one set time. It's always in flux.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So pushing forward, I got a parole question that I've heard by, just hearsay, many times actually, but I don't know if it's true. I've heard that if you get out and you're on parole and you're having problems with your parole officer, like if they're being unprofessional, or if you feel like they're being unfair or not doing their job in some regard, can you make some formal complaint and get a different parole officer? I've actually heard that you could, but I don't know.
Whew. Can I ask? Can we skip this question and go to the next question?
Right. Just like I did the last one. Yeah.
So look, there are many wonderful professional people that work for TBCJ Parole. There are some people who are not so professional. That's my politically correct way of kind of given a disclaimer.
Yeah, it's totally objective. Yeah.
I last week I talked about somebody who had a parole officer that made 5 written complaints, and all of them fell on deaf ears.
Wow.
Whenever and we have this advocacy talk with Brian Patrick, the
Yes.
ombudsman for the Texas Board of Criminal Justice, who I had the pleasure of meeting on Tuesday,
Okay.
and has a wickedly cool mustache,
Yeah, I seen it.
and
Oh,
so
curled up.
yeah. So we I asked him, and I tried to get into the crux of the deal, and I said, okay. I asked this ombudsman. I went to this person, and then this person, and this person. All of that fell on deaf ears, and then I called this ombudsman, and they say no, because they only deal with the institutional parole officers, but they don't deal with the parole officers in the field. And then I
Wow.
asked the board, and so essentially, I don't know the answer to that question. Uh,
Wow.
and so, and that's me looking and ad nauseum into the policies. And I can quote chapter and verse on a lot of policies
Yeah, I've
inside
heard
of,
you. Yeah.
and so where I'm literally like scratching my head going, what the heck?
Yeah. Where does that come from? Yeah.
And where it's just, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, how about this? So, what is the proper way, at least the way that is in place right now, to file like a grievance if you have a grievance with your parole officer?
Again, I won't have the answer to that question until after
Oh,
the
not
25th of this month. I don't
okay. So
because
we're looking for
it,
that procedure. Yeah.
No, if you'll look on the schedule on the agenda, that was the question that I asked. That was the
Ah.
question that I asked, and he said, "Hey, it's a bear to figure out." And so and that's a guy who came from another state to take over this
Okay.
job, and so he sees there's something's missing here.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and so that's where I go back to document.
Yes.
You document everything. So we have, like I talked about last week, Favor Shield. And Favor Shield, I use Favor Shield. I mean, I created it for me.
Right.
And so, meaning that every time that you check in with your parole officer, you need to log into the Favor Shield app, into the portal, and put that in there. If you're having a phone conversation with your parole officer, record it. Texas is a one-party state, which means that as long as you are a party of the conversation, whether it's in person, over a telephone, over the internet, it doesn't matter. As long as you're a party to the conversation, you can legally record something, and then you
Okay.
take that recording to put that on the. If I have the ability to video record, like I have Ring cameras all throughout my house, I have the
Yes.
video to video record my parole visits at home. Then I'll do that and I'll put that on the camera, and I'll make
Wow.
sure that I'm
Yes.
always staying in front of the camera.
Yes.
And
Because your
so,
freedom is that important, right?
and it's absolutely that important. I have a
Yes.
dash cam in my car that I absolutely upload periodically up into the cloud. And
Yes.
some people may say that that's overbearing, but here's what will not happen. I will not get accused of doing something I didn't do or not doing
Yes.
something that I did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it's up to each individual how far they want to take it, but
that's
it's
right.
always in your best interest to cover yourself.
Yeah.
And you
With
always
unlimited,
want to cover yourself in writing, in recording, in
yeah.
something that is actually can be used and permissible if you have to use it, God forbid, in a
Yeah.
hearing or in a court of law or whatever the case.
And let me say
Yeah.
this too, is that one of the things, first off, for only $12 a month to have unlimited cloud storage makes all the sense in the world. The
Yeah, that's
second thing
big too.
the second
Yeah.
thing too is that one of the things that we do with that service is, in the event that somebody gets violated, they contact us. We will take everything that they've loaded on the cloud and make it available for the state, for the defense, and give them what's called a business records affidavit, which makes it admissible in courts. And so
Okay.
that way it's authenticated, it is
Yes.
admissible, and it's available. And so that's the whole thing, because again, it is,
Hey.
how do I get this? And then how do I keep the state or the parole board from saying, oh, you can't authenticate that? Well, we've thought of that, and that's what we're doing now.
Yes, you streamlined it all the way down, man, to make it most convenient and expeditious,
Yes.
right? For
Yeah.
anybody to
Absolutely.
access. That's great, man. I love the idea. Love to see how you spent your time, brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say people, I didn't do time. I invested time. I came out
Yes,
better
sir.
and with a plan. Um, okay. So the one thing that I want to talk about is when your loved one makes parole, they will get a document from the parole board telling them that, hey, you've been granted parole release. This is your FI code. FI stands for further investigation. There are different
I never knew
FIs.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the FIs, so there are different FIs. FI1 typically
Right.
means that you're going to be that they're going to be leaving within 30 to 45 days.
Right.
FI2, which is kind of, you would think that that's 60 to 75 days.
60 to
No,
90. Yeah.
I've seen FI2s last 9 months. So, and it's just what it is it's kind of like that. Okay, we'll give you parole, but we're not going to tell you quite yet when you're going home. And so it may be for whatever other further investigation that they need. FI3 typically means that you have to take changes, which is a program that's offered
Life
at most
skills.
units, right? I'll come back to for FI5 and S6. All right, well that's nice. Golly, boy, you're some ruthless people around here. Um, the um, the FI 5 and 6 are substance
Yes,
abuse
sir.
or alcohol programs. The FI
Okay.
5 requires an aftercare program, which essentially means that you will be going to a halfway house that's connected to that program
Right.
after you get out, and they have an aftercare program that they do.
Right.
Moreover, so then you've got that. So then you have the FI4, the FI9, and the FI18.
Yes.
The FI, those are all for people who have committed and been convicted of sex offenses or some derivative thereof. Some
Okay.
people even who haven't been convicted but were charged with sex offenses and were pled down to cite injury to a child. They
All right.
may still have to go through that program. Um,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
so typically the way it's supposed to be is supposed to be 4-9-18 is supposed to be low, medium, high risk.
Okay.
But
That
that
makes
doesn't
sense.
necessarily
Yeah.
qualify.
Whatever openings they have, right? Yeah.
Right. It's all up to unit or system need. Uh, the um, the FI4 is what's called SOEP, which is a sex offender education program, and so it is a 4-month program. So that whenever they arrive, they get checked in. Their 4 months will start. Uh, they'll PC at that date, and then after they PC, whether it's the 3 PC men's program complete, whether it's the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 9, the 18.
Yeah.
From that date, typically it's 30 to 45 days until they get a date and walk out. And so roundabout. Now, whenever
Okay.
they get that FI, they're also going to get on their sheet special conditions. And so you
Yes.
can find any of the special conditions via, which just reminded me about something,
Yeah. Y'all
which,
gonna want to pay attention to special conditions. These are the
okay,
conditions that are governing your freedom. Yeah.
yeah. And so this is why it's so important is that I myself and other clients that we have been held to special conditions that they were not given by the board. So let me be very clear, and
Yes.
I want to preface all of this with saying that while parole officers are public servants according to the penal code, meaning that they are protected, you can't assault them without committing a felony, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are not peace officers, meaning that they have the same arrest powers as a private citizen. Felonies, breaches of the peace, and to prevent against the consequences of theft. That is it. And so they enforce board policies. They enforce special conditions. They cannot act outside of that statutory authority or they lose what is called qualified immunity. And so what I
Okay.
mean by that is that if I don't have special condition 0.22, which is the gainful employment condition, then I don't need a parole officer to approve where I work. Now I have to give them the ability to verify my employment. That is
Right.
different. Verification and approval are two totally separate things. And
Right.
so, all of that being said, I want you to understand that I know that because I took the time whenever I got my conditions. You can go right now in any special condition, you can Google it, and you will find typically the PDF. If you can't find it, reach out to me. I will help you find it, and I will help you get it to your loved one so that they can know exactly what they can and cannot do, what they are being held by and bound by. If they have
Yes.
questions about that, reach out to me. I will try to do everything I can to help them fully understand. Um,
Absolutely, man. They
and
said they
so
have to know this if they're going to stay free, so that you
that's right.
don't do something in ignorance that will actually turn out to be a technical violation. And
That's right.
how many men go back to prison on a technical violation? It's not a
Yeah.
new crime. It's a
Right.
technicality. It's a
Right.
violation of one of these conditions which we're talking about right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll say this too, is that also uh, being familiar with the special conditions have also helped me in what we do now, obviously.
Right.
For example, I just had a client who got violated, uh, had bona fide violations, but the way the parole officer wrote it up was under the wrong violation and
Code. Yeah.
misunderstood what the policy was, and you could tell that the way that they did the violation.
Yes.
And so if you are ever revoked on parole, god god forbid,
Yeah.
but if
Bid.
you ever are, the policy permits you to request a rehearing within 60 days in writing, and it's very nuanced. You've got to do everything jot and
60
tittle.
days.
60
Yes.
days. It has to be in writing. It has to be signed by the offender. It has to be delivered to the office of general counsel. It actually goes and is looked over by an attorney, which is a good thing. And
Right.
so, because they're basically saying, like, this is something that could get us in trouble. We want to make sure that we
Yeah.
haven't violated anyone's
Yeah.
rights.
You need to look at this.
And so, what they did is one of the particular deals that they violated him for. He was at work, had a migraine, and asked one of his coworkers for an aspirin. And
Okay.
and he told his parole officer that he wasn't sure if it was or was not prescription, and she wrote him for a drug violation.
Oh wow. No dirty
I,
UA, no
no
nothing.
dirty UA, no nothing like that. It was something he gave up of his own volition.
Woo!
Yeah.
Wow,
Tr-
man.
and
Yeah.
so
And
trying to do the
when
right thing.
something like that happens, man, we tend to panic, and
Yeah.
I can just imagine how the family would feel. Like, oh my God, you're arresting him again for what? And
Yeah.
something like that, or something just as frivolous. A lot of people don't know what to do. They think, who do I talk to? Who do I go to? So that's why they need to know that, man, people are out there. The knowledge is out there. Professionals and experts are out there. People who have lived through this and spent years studying it. So we're trying to let more and more people know where such resources exist at. All
Yeah.
right. Uh,
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to move on to another question, unless you
Sure.
got a follow up on that there. No?
Absolutely
All
not.
right.
Go ahead.
Good deal. I've been asked about traveling while you're on parole. Specifically, are we allowed to travel out of state while we're on parole? And how does that work?
So the answer is yes and no. Yes, you can travel outside the state, but you must do so with permission. You
Right.
have to get permission, and depending on the conditions of your parole, you will have to go through a process. Uh, and I will tell you that the more significant your offense, the less amount of time you've been on parole, the more hoops you will have to jump through. So some people have a condition, depending on, there are actually two different conditions that contain verbiages that say that you must not leave the county of conviction or the county of your residence without getting written permission from your parole officer. I
Yes.
actually, oddly enough, I just came across this recently with a guy that was out of the Waco office, and I didn't know that it was in Special Condition X for if you're an SO, if you're a sex offender, you're on sex offender parole, then you can have that as a condition. Again, read every line. And so he was going to go out of town, and I'm like, he's like, can I? I was like, I don't know. Let me see your conditions. He goes, it's not in there. I'm telling you, and it was in there. And luckily, we did that, and we went about getting him the appropriate permission.
Wow.
And and this is something else too that a lot of people don't know. You can request for modification of your parole conditions.
How do you go about that? That's something I just learned about recently that I've never even heard about before.
Okay. And let me tell you the funny thing about this is that I did it recently. Years and years and years of studying. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. And this is how to go about it. Whenever I did it, my parole officer, who has been a parole officer for several years, was like, I've never seen this before. I've never had this happen before. I don't even know what to do from here. And so I had to go, well, according to this policy, this is what has to happen next. And so, and I'll leave it at that.
I get it.
Likewise, whenever I talked about this, I talked to this parole officer of this particular person out of Waco, and I told him, I said, well, I'm going to be submitting for him or he's going to be submitting a modification for parole conditions. And he says, I mean, he can't do that. I was like, absolutely can. It's like, look at this policy. And he goes and he's clicking on and I can hear him typing. And he's going into the intranet, which is their back system that has all these policies. And I said, if you look at this page, this line, and he's like, because I'm looking, well, bro, I'm looking at it. Like, I'm like, okay, because I'm good at certain ones, but not that one. And so I said, look at this. And he said, I've never seen that. I've been here 7 years. I've never seen that. I was like, okay, so let me make sure you understand. Whenever he gives this to you, it's going to be in writing. It's going to be signed. And then your supervisor needs to make sure that it follows all of these different criteria, and that it has to go to the board. The board has to rule on it per policy. And
like
so,
a three voter thing again, or what?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. But it does go to the board. Yeah.
Okay. So let me say this. Okay. Years ago, there have been several different rulings. These are court rulings where people have objected and filed suit or filed a writ of habeas corpus under their either parole or probation conditions. And here's what the United States Supreme Court, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and all of the subsidiary courts have all said is under no circumstances can a parole or probation condition create undue hardship. That is the terminology. It cannot create undue hardship. And what that means is that it cannot keep you from getting or maintaining gainful employment or residency. And so, like, for example, I'm disabled. Like, I've been shot twice, stabbed once, and ran over twice. I have traumatic brain injury with seizure disorder. Yeah, and I can't work in a warehouse or in a really hot setting. I mean, I've my AC's blasting all the time. And so, if I were told that I couldn't do what I'm doing, and that I have to resort to manual labor, well, that's creating undue hardship because it could cause me serious bodily injury and or death. And thus you've rendered me unemployable. And thus that creates undue hardship. And so same thing. And so if you can articulate undue hardship, you're good.
Yes, that's one thing I'll say about parole. Everything changes once you get gainful employment. Once you get a job, and you show your parole officer that you were gainfully hired, and you might have to send them a picture of a paycheck once a month or so often, just so they can verify that you're gainfully working, man. But at that point right there, so much stuff eased up on me. For me personally, that was my experience when I got a job, which I got a job on my 8th day out of prison. But once I started working and I could verify and show that, man, everything got easier. It wasn't really super hard before that, but everything got easier. And then when you think about it, it makes sense. Upon reflection, think about it from the PO's perspective. Where is this? How is this guy paying his bills? How is he feeding himself? How is he clothing himself? How is he traveling around? Where is he getting money from? And if you don't have gainful employment or just family like that, then the suspicions start ratcheting up, and you might be going the wrong direction. So I get it, but your
Absolutely.
job is a big difference maker. Get a
Yeah,
job as
absolutely.
soon as possible. Yes, sir.
And so this is one of the things that I think is super important is I've always been like, I'm going to let my parole officer know my character and intentions instantly,
Yes.
consistently, and repetitively. And so here's what I intend to do. This is what it is. And that will very quickly tell the attitude of your parole officer if they are hindering your growth or if they
Yeah.
are assisting and helping your growth. And
Okay.
so that is and there are numerous different types of parole officers and probation officers, but I have seen and experienced both. I have experienced some that
Yes.
genuinely want me to be the man that I'm called to be, and I've seen
Yes.
some that it is do everything they can to make my life difficult from what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been blessed so far. So
Amen.
far, man, I've had two professionals.
Amen.
So
That's awesome.
that's good. Right. I've been lucky because I know a lot of guys that are less fortunate. Another question that I've received, and I think I know this answer, but let's see what you know about it. Parole fees, right? When you get out, everybody on parole is required, as a stipulation of their parole, to pay X amount of dollars, usually $18 a month, uh, for as long as you're on parole. Now, if a person cannot afford to pay their parole fees, going through it, poor, whatever the case may be, if they literally cannot afford that, can they be sent back to prison for not paying their parole fees?
Okay, so the easy answer to this is yes and no. And I'll tell you why I
Uh,
say that. I'll tell you why I say that because your conditions say that because you enter into a contract, a contractual agreement between you and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and the Texas Board of Pardons and
okay.
Paroles whenever you exit
That's how the
prison.
law looks at it. Yeah.
I mean, that's factually what it is. They
Yes.
give you terms and conditions, and you sign saying that you're going to agree to them. Now, I would argue the fact that, hey, contracts work
Signing
both
under
ways.
duress and
Duress,
coercion. Like, I ain't got a
yeah,
choice but to sign.
I'm not going
I
there.
know.
I'm with you.
I
But
know.
so here's the thing. Um, if you can articulate undue hardship, if you are first off, you're not going to be homeless on parole. It's you're
Right.
not supposed to be homeless on parole,
It's against the
and so
rules.
it is
Yeah.
against the rules. And so therefore, if you are to the point that you are homeless and destitute, and they violate you for fees, then that's kind of another thing. Is that I would say that I don't believe that it happens very frequently because it's $18 a month. Now, if it was
Right.
probation, where it's $60 a month, or sometimes more than that, depending on the situation,
Right.
I would think that that's the case. But $18 a month, I'm call me. I don't ever want to go back to prison. Don't a whole
Yes.
bunch of y'all call me. It ain't like that,
Okay.
okay?
Now check this out.
What?
I've actually seen this one time.
Okay.
Yeah. I seen a guy come back to prison on a parole violation for not paying his parole fees. I believe he said he didn't pay for like 5 months, maybe 5 or 6 months before they violated him, but he was actually back in prison for not paying his parole fees. So yeah,
Um,
whether it happens often or not, it's at least possible.
Yeah, and let me say that, and one comment that says that they are not supposed to be able to violate your for fees.
Okay.
Let's also draw a differentiation between violation and revocation. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's an inherent difference. And again, this is where I go into yes and no. According to the contract that we signed, yes. According to common vernacular, kind of what's been going on, because what you're doing is you're saying that because you're poor, we're putting you back into prison. I mean, it kind
Right.
of goes against the entire ethos of the United States of America.
It's the whole justice concept. Yeah.
And so, and yes, your parole fees are suspended if you're revoked. So they don't continue to accumulate because you're no longer on parole. You're back incarcerated. You're part of the institutional division again. And so, so there's an inherent difference between a violation. So you can have multiple violations and never actually receive a motion to revoke.
Yes.
Okay, so there's difference. So there's a violation. There's a motion to revoke, which subsequently happens to a blue warrant, or causes the blue warrant, right? It causes you to be taken back into custody, and then you have a preliminary hearing, you have a revocation hearing, and then if you are deemed to have violated to the point of revocation, the board deems so. Your parole officer gets a recommendation. There's another third party that gets a recommendation, like a case manager, and then the board gets to decide. And so that being said, so understand that I think that I can see somebody maybe as a condition of parole and having violations, that's one of the violations that is listed. But I have not yet seen, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist or hasn't existed. I haven't seen somebody where the sole reason for violation and revocation is fees. So that's what I want to say that.
Right. What speaking of violations and revocations, does parole, if a guy or a girl on parole gets violations or a revocation even, do they have to use the programs before they send you back to prison if you don't actually have a new charge, or is that just an option? Does everybody have to go through?
Ask your question in a different way. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think of the program. It's not Safe P. What is the one that they send you back to for parole violation?
ISF, intermediate.
ISF. Yeah, I'm thinking of all these different letters and acronyms, man. ISF. Yeah. Does if you don't catch a new charge, if you get a technical violation, are they supposed to send you to ISF before ever sending you back to prison?
Supposed to, no. It is an option. It is an option. And so it's all up to the parole board and the parole officer. The case that I just told you about, the case manager recommended ISF.
Yes.
The treatment provider recommended ISF. The parole officer recommended revocation. The board revoked.
Yes.
This is something I want to say, and this is not parole advice. This is not legal advice. Right. Never, ever, 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 ever waive your rights to a hearing.
No,
it will not. It will not bode well to you. I want everything documented, and I want all of the checks and balances checked and balanced. And
balanced.
And that's exactly what happened in this situation. The client thinking that he was going to, they'll be lenient on me because of
I'm not going to take up their time or something.
Right. And I just do not agree with that at all.
No.
And so
I don't either. I always want my fair shake. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The next two questions I got, I can pretty much handle these. One lady asked us if she's allowed to go with her loved one when they check in at their parole office. It really just depends on the parole officer, because I can say from experience that my fiance has been allowed to come into the parole officer's office with me and sit down for the discussion. No problem. Strictly up to the parole officer, though. There's not a policy on it one way or another that I'm aware of.
No, there's not.
The next question is dealing with monitors. They want to know the difference between a GPS and a curfew monitor, right? Well, since I'm wearing one right now, I think I can handle that one. Right?
Yep, I agree.
So they just changed, the entire state of Texas just changed these leg monitors to like a new vendor. a new brand, a new company, right? So everybody in the entire state of Texas that was wearing an ankle monitor, they all went into their parole office over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, and they had their leg monitor removed, cut off, and a new one put on, which is a different shape, still kind of bulky, uncomfortable, all that, right? Now, my understanding with this leg monitor is the GPS and the curfew monitor are one and the same. They're not two different pieces of equipment. They use the exact same leg monitor, because I was told when I come off a GPS, which is what parole calls SISP, which is their highest level of supervision. I always get the meaning messed up, right?
Super intensive supervision
right?
program.
Super intensive parole, right? Oh man, that just sounds bad. But she told me when I come off of SISP, which by the way, that's already been submitted for. Thank you very much. Moving along. When I come off SISP, I'll still have the monitor on. They won't cut it off. But for the next 45 days, I'll be on curfew monitor, meaning I don't have to submit a schedule, to with every address of every place that I want to go to have it pre-approved before I can do stuff. My days will be open under a curfew monitor. I can go where I want, when I want. I just have to be in the house by the curfew at nighttime. So rock out on that for about another 45 days or so, and then they'll finally cut it off. So
yeah,
that's the difference, and that's the whole scenario.
Yeah, and I will say that after you had your discussion with Chairman Nichols at the podium, and
Yes,
we adjourned for a little bit, that Director Hianosa, the director of parole, came up and was asking you questions, and one of the things that whenever you told him that this was your understanding, and he absolutely affirmed that what he just said is 100% accurate. So
yes.
I just want to point that out, and that
yes,
I was
he
sitting
did
there for
confirm
the
that.
conversation.
Yeah, he did confirm that. Good catch. All right, I got an interesting question here. Something I've myself often wondered about as well. Being a guy that was sentenced to a lengthy term and still got a long time on parole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another decade. So they want to know, is there any way to get off of parole early?
Okay. Depending on your offense.
I should say we want to know. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got to look at the statute 509.155, 1555 of the Texas Government Code. I think it's 509. It's either 509 or 507. I'll look at it. But it says that, yes, in certain conditions, you can apply for early termination after you've done 1/2 of your
outside parole time, probably.
Of your outside parole time with no violations in the previous 2 years. Let me make sure that I'm correct about that. Wow. Hold on a second. So Texas.
Wow, I've always wondered about that myself, man. That's some great information.
508.155. That's what it is. Hold on. Okay. Yes, it. I was right. Again, I don't even know how that worked out. Okay. So 508.155, procedure for the early release from supervision of certain releasees. A parole officer annually shall is a legal term. It's an absolute, shall identify the releasees under the parole officer's supervision who are eligible for early release from supervision under section 508.155 subsection C. A releasee is eligible for early release if the releasee has been under supervision for at least 1/2 of the time that remains on the releasee sentence when this releasee was released from prison. During the preceding 2-year period, the releasing has not committed any violation of the rules or conditions of release. And during the period of supervision, the releasee's parole or release to mandatory supervision has not been revoked, and the division determines that the releasee has made a good faith effort to comply with any restitution, which is like restitution is different than fees, but imposed a restitution order imposed by the releasee by the court, and that allowing the releasee to serve the remainder of the releasee sentence without supervision and reporting is in the best interest of society. So Let me clarify something. There is a difference between getting off parole and getting off supervision.
Okay, what's that difference look like?
Okay. Well, what's the words? Parole, I have been given a 20-year sentence. I'm going to serve out that 20-year sentence, whether I serve it in prison or outside. And
Right.
I'm allowed with parole to have a combination of that. And then, but I can be still on parole and be unsupervised, which means, Shannon, if your parole officer at the end of your 1/2 period of time and you had you met all of these requirements, and she said, okay, Shannon, he's met that condition, and so I'm going to let him off. You are still on parole. You're just not being
Okay.
supervised. And so if in the event that you commit another crime, your parole can still be revoked.
Still going to be a violation. Yeah.
That's right.
A revocation. Yeah.
A revocation.
Okay. That's interesting. I never knew that. So here's a question that comes to mind. If you get off of parole and onto supervision, is that what you called it?
Yes.
You're actually unsupervised. You're parole unsupervised, right?
That's right.
Would you still pay a monthly parole fee if you're unsupervised?
No, sir. No, sir. Because you're paying supervision fees.
Okay.
You're paying fees to be supervised. So
that makes a little more sense now.
Yeah. So
makes a little more sense. I like that. That was great information, man. I appreciate that.
I will say this. That's just because you're on lockdown. You have nothing else to do but read the 508 of the Texas government code. Because
that's what I read before I went to bed every night.
No, that was the Bible. But yeah, so in that, I say that to understand that, yes. So what that does is I would talk to my parole officer and go, hey, do I fall, if I do this, this, and this, do I fall under that 508.155 subsection C? And so I recommend that everybody, as I'm giving that information out, I don't have the ability to put it in the chat. Ashlyn, if you can, I'll actually send it to Ashlyn so that she can put it in the chat so that everybody can look, and then do your own due diligence, guys. And again, if I can help at all, please reach out to me. That's what we're here for. That we do this for that reason. There you go, Ashlyn.
All right. I got one brief question I'll address, and I got only one more question left after that. Briefly, somebody in the comments is asking if the parole board can use the same reasons over and over for denying people, and we've already addressed that, but obviously they didn't hear. So simply put, yes, they can use the same reason over and over again. There's not a policy or anything preventing them from doing that.
That's right. 100%.
My last question that I got is families out here on this side of the fence, on this side of the wire, so to speak. They want to know what are the best or most realistic ways that they can help their loved one to make parole. What can they actually do? If you have opinions on that, suggestions or insights.
Say that again. I'm
family members, family members are ruthless. Yeah, no. Now the one I got right now didn't come off tonight's comments. I already had this one. Yeah, they want to know what can they do. What would you advise families of incarcerated that are striving to make parole? What can their families do for them to help them make parole? What is within their power?
Okay, so this is not going to be the standardized answer that you would think. It has nothing to do per se with the letters, and support letters are wonderful. You can do those things. So if you're asking what you could do those things. You can send support letters. You can request, per the board policy and per the statute and the government code, to be able to give testimony to
the voters,
the lead voter. You actually get to speak to the lead voter, and that is discretionary. It's not an absolute right, but certainly, like, one of the things that we do whenever we're asked to do a special review after a parole denial is we go, hey, look, this was an option that I wasn't even afforded the opportunity to do, and thus I would have provided this valuable testimony, which would have allowed for the parole board to see, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
The thing that I would say is that it is all about helping your loved one navigate prison with the least amount of conflict as possible.
Right.
And so what does that look like? First off, and let me say this, and this isn't a promotion, this is me just being honest, is that I sent a client to you guys today because she was asking me things. She had a loved one who was dealing with some safety issues. And so one of the, Marcia, if you could look up in the deal, it's 508.1555 of the government code. One of the things that I want to point out is that there are services out there like Heart Check that absolutely will help people navigate through prison with the least amount of problems possible. And so you guys know what those processes are. You
Yes,
guys
sir.
know the people to talk to, all the way up to the board members of the TBCJ. And so in that, I think that that's a very big, you need an advocate that's going to be able to help you understand and how to circumnavigate problems, grievances,
Yeah.
issues with chow and things like that. Because here's what happens more often than not. And if you haven't been incarcerated and you're the loved one of an incarcerated person, it's hot. You have very little rights. You're relying on this institution to give you all of your food and nourishment. And you show up and things that are supposed to be done aren't done. You're in a tightly compacted space, especially in a chow hall and on some of these max units, and you are absolutely getting more and more frustrated. And frustration can only manifest itself as anger, and anger causes us to want to act out.
Okay.
You get a whole bunch of men and women too in a confined space that all feel the same way, and things can pop off like that. A riot pops off, your loved one's in the middle of it, and even assisted in the escalation of it. Terrible, terrible.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah. It can
so
get very dangerous very quickly.
so
Mhm.
so this is all, get them on a path of personal growth and development. If
Yes.
they don't have a path, then get a hold of myself or Shannon, and we will help you with recommendations on books, programs, classes. If I have to call the chaplain at your unit and get the field ministers to go over there or the
Yep.
life coaches to go over there, whatever we need to do, we want to do everything that we can to progress them further in their personal character growth and development.
Yes.
That is the best thing,
Yes.
the
Very
absolute
well
best thing
put.
that you could do for your
Personal
loved
growth
one.
path is
Yeah.
absolutely what you need. A
And
personal growth path. Yeah.
yeah, and the reason why I say that is because, case in point, the client that I was talking about earlier, he
Yes.
has done everything right. Hasn't done it. I cannot dictate. I can't predict what parole will or will not do.
Right.
So as it depends on me, I have to be the best me that I can be whenever I walk out of this place. And in my faith as a Christ follower, I believe in a sovereign God that controls all and sees all. And so what that says is that if I ain't got it, I don't need it, type thing.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I just trust that God's controlling those things. And so
Yes,
that's
sir.
difficult to hear at times. But I look at where I am now, and had I made my first parole, I wouldn't be here. And
Well,
so
yeah, and some things that are outside of your control, that's where you got to have faith. That's where faith comes in and sustains or supports you. To each their own, but that's where that comes in and gives you a leg up, right? All right.
absolutely.
Do you have any closing remarks on the totality of parole in the state of Texas? All aspects of it. Any last things you want to share tonight?
I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again.
Absolutely.
And we have talked about it. Um, I'm going to actually mention two things that I've mentioned before. First and foremost, the number one thing that parole wants to see is remorse. And because remorse predicts change, and so change is evidenced over time, and so repentance or remorse is evidenced over time. And so if I went to prison for an assaultive offense and I continued to commit assaults while I was in prison,
Behavior.
it's
Yeah.
very, very difficult for me to say that I'm remorseful. I'm sorry that I got caught. I'm sorry that I'm in prison. I'm sorry that I lost all this.
Your
But am I
actions have
really?
to, yeah,
Yeah,
actions have to, be the same as your words. Yeah.
absolutely. Then, so, we practice the four-part ideology: remorse, rehabilitation, plan, and support. And Marcia, I want you to call me tomorrow. I want to talk to you about your desire to write rehabilitation curriculum, because I've got some stuff I'd like to talk to you about.
Right.
The second thing that I want to say is that all of these things have got to be changed on the House and the Senate floor in Austin. Period.
Yes.
We cannot rely on the parole board to change it because they don't have the statutory authority to do so.
Nope.
It is
That's
the
the only authority
legislature.
that does. Yeah.
It is the legislation that is written that gives them and bestows upon them and invests them with statutory authority. And so right now we do not have a liberty interest to parole, which means that your parole is not an absolute right, it's a privilege.
Yes.
And until that changes, parole will not change. And so I'll say this, and it's been very controversial, and it's really upset some people. And I'm sorry that I'm not sorry. Is that respectfully, all of the people that want to push the earn time, work time, hey, that's great. Here's the problem: if you don't change it to being a absolute liberty issue, it doesn't change. And let me tell you what will happen. TDCJ will still want to be 100% occupied. And right now, your parole acceptance rates hover anywhere between 36, 38 to 41, 42%, right around 40%. What will happen is if a whole bunch of people become eligible, your rate of denial will significantly increase, and the approval rate will be in the single digits because they're still going to let the same amount of people out, because ultimately they just got more funding to be able to improve and add more beds. We just went to the Texas Board of Criminal Justice meeting the other day, as we talked about earlier. They're adding
Yes.
5,280 more cold beds
Yep.
system-wide around TDCJ on like 13 different units. So
Yes.
understand, they're actually making more way to put more people in.
Mhm.
Therefore, we have to be able to communicate to our legislators that parole should be a right and not a privilege. And so
We
let me
hope.
say that. So let me say this is that, and in that vein, what Ashlyn and I and you, Shannon, and other people have said that we're going to do, and we are going to do, is we are going to write a specific piece of legislation that
Yes.
we've already got targeted legislators that we're going to go after. And as that happens, we're going to let you guys know so that you can contact those legislators and say, hey, look,
Yes.
I
And
support this
support.
bill. I
Yes.
support this bill. And then whenever it comes time for those bills to be heard in Austin, show up and testify.
Yes.
Because let me
Yes.
tell you what happens whenever we try to pass legislation that it improves upon the quality of life of the offenders and the loved ones. No one shows up to speak. But I guarantee you that the opposition, the people that are,
Yeah.
tough on
They're showing up
crime,
to speak against it.
every
Yes.
time and in mass. And it's
Yes.
the district attorneys that bring the worst stories up to here. And so now these board members that are on
We
this.
need to balance the scales. Yeah.
And so absolutely. And so I say that because my whole proposition is that all of these ITP courses, these improvement courses, should be point system based. If you gain a certain amount of points, you should be able to have your sentence either reduced, meaning not your sentence reduced, but your parole eligibility brought
Right.
closer. And if you have disciplinary problems, your parole eligibility date should move further away. And so it's absolutely a merit system based. Now,
Right.
and then my proposition there as well, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is that I believe fervently that if we have that type of system, people won't want to assault staff because they actually have. Zig Ziglar said it best. People have a hope to gain, work harder for a hope to gain rather than a fear of loss. And so What does that mean? That means that if I tell you, Shannon, if you don't do this, this, and this, I'm going to put you back in prison. But if I say, hey, Shannon, if you do this and this and this, I might help you get off of parole early. What are you going to do,
Right?
Shannon?
What's
What's
the
going to
better
make you work
incentive?
hard?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so
give them an incentive. Yes.
Yeah. And so then people aren't going to want to have weapons. Then people aren't going to want to engage in narcotics. Then what's going to happen is the chaplaincy won't be able to keep the doors shut. They're going to need to be running a rehabilitative programming 24/7 in order to keep up with the volume.
And that's what we want.
Exactly.
That's what we want. Yeah. They got a whole bunch of big sticks, but they ain't got very many carrots, do they?
No.
Yeah, for real. All right, sir. Man, you sum up very well. Man, I love your knowledge and insight. I personally learned a couple of things myself tonight, man, that I actually find encouragement in. So, man, anybody that continues to have parole questions, legal questions, Brandon Kopic, Favor Legal, their information will be in our comments as well. And anybody, man, y'all got more questions, continue to send them to us. It doesn't have to be no special time of day, week, month, or year. This is what we do all day, every day. This is what we've decided we want to do, right? So by all means, anytime, reach out to Brandon, reach out to Ashlyn through the Transparency Project, reach out to me or Ashlyn through Heart Check Prison Strategies Group. If you're interested in mentorship or coaching for your loved ones who have to go through these struggles, or man, so many other things, so many other possibilities, reach out. We're a phone call away, a text message, whatever. I'm glad everybody attended tonight, man. I thank you all, man. We try to help as much as we can. Let us know how we can help you. All right. We love you all, man, and we want the best for everybody, man. With that, we'll be signing off tonight. Everybody have a great evening. All right. Good night.
All right.
Yeah.